Good afternoon, folks. Welcome. We've made it. UFC 280 preview show. My name's Tim Wheaton, joined as always by Frazer Krohn, the editor at MMA Sucka. How you doing today, Frazer?
Excited for this one. UFC 280, probably, on paper, the best card of the year, aside from the PFL, but I've got my biases. I like the PFL November card, but best UFC card of the year so far, and I'm buzzing to jump straight into it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We were talking off air, and now let's just go right in. No previews or anything like that. I'm surprised at this card. It looked so good on paper. It's been 3 months, and we haven't had any injuries or anything like that. Now, barring any weight issues going into the final days, this looks amazing. I can't believe we made it this far. This is so lucky.
Yeah, it's almost like, okay, all the fighters on here are notorious for pulling out, so we'll just stack the card with a number of huge fights. Anyone could main event, Yeah. Obviously, we've got the Oliveira Makhachev main event and the TJ versus Sterling co-main event. If either one of those pulls, if the main event pulls out, TJ and Sterling probably could main event this card, especially with the guys beneath. But we haven't had any pullouts. We've still got the vacant in brackets lightweight main event. We've still got the bantamweight main event. We've still got the feature bantamweight bout in Aljamain Sterling. We've still got Dariush Gamrot. We've still got, Chookagian Fiorot is definitely going under the radar for me because I think that's a phenomenal fight.
That could be a main event for a fight night.
Without a doubt. I think that main event's in France. If
it does. It
was obviously meant to be on the France card back in September. We'll go on to talk about that. We've still got Belal Muhammad, Sean Brady. We've still got, Muradov versus Barelo. That's a finisher's fight. Ozdamir Krylo. Main events. Nine fight nights out of 10.
Yeah,
I can't even get close to the main card on this one. We've got, we've got Muhammad Mokaev, second fight on the card. Third UFC fight, second fight on the card. We've got Lena Landsberg opening the card, a girl who was headlined against Chris Cyborg in a fight night before. This card is amazing, and nobody has fallen out yet.
I know. How have they made it? However, I think we do need to talk about the ghost in the room. The ghost of UFC 223. Let me tell you a story about a vacant lightweight title fight featuring Khabib Nurmagomedov. And then you know what happened? His opponent had to drop out of the fight due to a knee injury. But then they got the light heavyweight champion, Max Holloway, to fill in as substitute. Who's the substitute this week? Light heavyweight champion Alexander Volkanovski. Of course, that fight fell through due to various reasons. But I am sensing a little bit of a ghost for the main event. Vacant. There's a lot of parallels to UFC 223. One of the biggest, most exciting, 25 hours that we've had in MMA leading up to it.
You say exciting, I say stressful. I mean, come on. It's we're getting Khabib Tony. We're getting Khabib Max. They get to pretty much the weigh-ins. Yeah, everybody weighs in. Max doesn't weigh in because he physically can't make the weight, or he's been pulled from making the weight.
Yes.
You then look at Paul Felder. Well, apparently he's not ranked high enough. You then look at Anthony Pettis, a former champion. Oh, apparently he's not ranked high enough. The board won't allow it. Quinter, is that you? Come on in. Even on the ring walk, someone knocked over a TV. Quinter, reactions straight on point to grab the TV as it's falling. This guy is so relaxed. He's going up to fight. He's literally making the ring walk to fight one of the most dangerous guys in UFC history as far as domination is concerned.
Yep.
Khabib is coming off the dominant victory of, I think it was Edson Barboza, where he's dominated him. He's dominated Michael Johnson.
Yep, just on a streak. Yeah,
he's the guy to avoid. Quinter doesn't care. I don't even like the UFC. I can't be bothered to fight anymore. But what? I might win a title. Yeah, why not? Probably gets 50-44, 50-43 even in some of those rounds. He gets put in a rear naked choke. And then he managed to go the 25-minute distance on 24 hours notice.
Yep.
And then for me, the best bit of the entire fight, he drops his head like he's really disappointed when the final decision's read out, like he thought he might edge it. I mean, I completely agree with you, that they're stacking this card below the card just in case we have a fall off.
Yeah.
But they're even going as far as to have a replacement for the lightweight belt, which in my opinion, fingers crossed that this fight goes ahead, Oliveira Makhachev, because it's a phenomenal fight. We'll go on to talk about it in a second, but also I wouldn't want Volkanovski's opportunity at lightweight to come on 24 hours notice potentially, or 48 hours to 72. I'd want a full camp. Volkanovski switched on to I am fighting this fighter. Not I might be fighting Oliveira, I might be fighting Makhachev. I want him switched on, and I do think this is definitely a hint as to where Volkanovski will go. He'll probably have one more down at featherweight, and then move up to lightweight and challenge straight away for the belt.
Yep.
But I want that to be on a proper camp. I want that to be a proper sustained, not just Volkanovski cutting 10 less pounds like he will do for this bout. I want him to be a fully fledged lightweight by the time that he goes up to lightweight to compete. But
yes,
again, why not? He's going.
Why not?
He's going. He's going to get paid to weigh in. He's going to get paid an amount for his sort of show money, as it were. I imagine it's a great opportunity to boost his profile again. He's been out since the zombie fight with that. I think he broke his thumb, or he had hand surgery or something. So he's going to be doing the media rounds. He's going to be getting his name back out there. There's no featherweight fights on this card, so there's no one that's going to be calling him out. Oh, there's one featherweight fight, but the guys aren't nearly title contenders. So it's a great opportunity for him now to kind of just get his name back out there and say, look, I'm here for the lightweight title. I'm officially announcing my move up to lightweight. We've got a card coming in Australia in the beginning of next year. Put me on that card. If it's not at lightweight, I'll drop back down, to my weight class featherweight, and we'll see what happens down there. But I think it's Volkanovski's got nothing to lose. It's not like he's cutting down to 155. It's going to kill him. He's a 145-pound fighter, and it's a big cut for 145. But he's cutting 10 less pounds. He'll probably just cut the weigh in. I think I can't remember off the top of my head who it was that weighed in for the middleweight title fight a few months back. But they just sort of cut the weight, and then we didn't see anything from them. And you have this quite often. These guys, Jiri Prochazka, before he won the belt, did it. I think with Jan Blachowicz and Glover Teixeira, he weighed in, didn't see anything from him after fight night. He was just there as a fan then. Really, really exciting. But the lightweight main event.
I don't want to bury the lead here too much, but let me ask you. So right now this is the ghost of Tony Khabib. But what is the actual better fight? Oliveira Makhachev or Tony Khabib? Like, is this better than the fight that we have been promised 5 times? Or is it lateral?
I think it's difficult because we've seen recency bias maybe would say that this is the better fight because of Tony, how he's looked in his how he's looked against Gaethje, against Dariush, against Oliveira, against Chandler, against Nate. It's all sort of trending towards Khabib would have just dominated that fight, but that wasn't. This isn't the Tony Ferguson. This isn't the El Kukui Tony Ferguson. This is Tony Ferguson who he's not the Tony Ferguson that was scheduled to fight Khabib. And I think all these pullouts with Khabib, he had the injuries, Khabib had the injuries, the weight misses, the COVID cancellation of the pandemic. Card. I think that really maybe even just stunted the motivation of Tony. But I think if we look in 5-10 years, when both if we look at when Oliveira and Makhachev retire, I think we'll probably look back and say Khabib and Tony was the better fight on paper. But we don't know how this one's going to play out. This one almost guarantees a brilliant fight.
Yeah. And
we'll touch wood, fingers crossed, all that we're actually going to get this one. We never got Khabib Tony, so we'll never know. Well, that could have been a fight of the year contender. It could have been an absolute domination on the hands of Khabib. It could have been a domination on the hands of Ferguson. Yeah. This one will hopefully go down this weekend, and we'll be able to sort of put at least an extra paragraph onto the which is the better fight.
Maybe that's it. We'll wait to see what actually happened, but let's set it up. I'm going to set the stage here. Let's set the table. We have Islam Makhachev. He is the trained under Abdullah. He grew up next to Khabib Nurmagomedov. Apparently, they were neighbors growing up. He's put together a 10-fight win streak, recovering from his singular lone MMA loss. It's not just he's beaten some great fighters, but it's also how he beat these people. He dominated Bobby Green, dominated Dan Hooker, just dominated everyone in front of him in what was quite impressive performances. The kid from the favela, Charles Dubronx Oliveira, after having like a 4-4 record in the UFC, jumping around weights, unable to make weight. He's getting his he got weird injuries. But yeah, he came into the UFC as a phenom, struggled. He finally put it together. He figured out the weight. He figured out that he should be at Shute Box, put together like an 11-fight win streak over just incredible names like Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler. And they were some of the most exciting fights we have ever seen in UFC history. When you put it all together, this is a match made in heaven. These are the fights that we dream about, of like, we want these storylines going into this fight. I am so excited for this fight. Frazer, jump in here. Where are you at? What do you think? What do you see?
UFC, if you're listening, that's how you do a promo. That is how you do a promo. You know, if I wasn't hyped, enough, that has just got me even more hyped for this fight. I completely agree with everything you're saying. The backstories of these two guys outside of the octagon are to be followed. The stories of these guys inside the octagon are to get hyped for. You know, this is, on paper, one of the most competitive, intriguing matchups. We don't know where the fight's going to play out. We've got Islam Makhachev, the ground and pound Sambo Dagestani wrestler. Does he want to hit the floor with Charles Oliveira, who holds the UFC record for most submissions? Logically, you'd say, do not hit the floor with this guy. Do not go to the ground with this guy. Keep it standing. But then Charles Oliveira standing is a dangerous guy. You know, knocked down Justin Gaethje, put an absolute pace on Dustin Poirier, pretty much knocked out Michael Chandler on the feet.
Mm-hmm.
Then he showed his wrestling skills against Tony Ferguson, showed his stand-up and his wrestling against Kevin Lee. Even, you know, back in the day, knocked out Jared Gordon. You know, this guy is dangerous on the feet, dangerous on the ground.
Yes.
But Makhachev, I do not think fears Oliveira on the ground or on the feet. And because Charles Oliveira, we love watching him fight because he is so exciting. The guy will take a lick to land a right hook. He will take, you know, he goes to the ground easily, and that's no disrespect to his chin. I think he goes to the ground easily, hoping that opponents will follow him down. Well, he's got a dance partner in Makhachev that will more than likely look to follow him down. So I don't see Oliveira going down as easily. You know, some of the shots that were landed against Justin Poirier and against Justin Gaethje, I don't think would ordinarily knock Charles Oliveira down. But he sort of he received, you know, a jab or a hook that's landed on Oliveira, and he'll sort of flock to his back. He pulled guard against Justin Gaethje. This is how confident this guy is on the ground. Makhachev, I don't think, you know, even if he does land on Oliveira, I don't think Oliveira's instinct is to go, right, I'm gonna lie on my back, because Makhachev will jump straight into his guard and look to land that brutal ground and pound that we've seen so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Oliveira is such an exciting fighter because, like I say, he'll take 10 shots to land one big knee. He'll take 4 shots to land, you know, to try and get his, you know, he'll receive shots to try and get into the clinch and look to wrap a neck. But there's one of these wars that, you know, Tony Ferguson, you know, no disrespect to Tony, but it's an easy fight for Oliveira. He took him down, he dominated him on the floor. He took him down, he dominated him on the floor.
Yeah.
He took him down in the 3rd round, dominated him on the floor. It was a domination. I think I'm just going to quickly get the control time up for Charles Oliveira. 11 minutes 39 control time, so over 2 whole rounds. And that was 3 takedowns, 1 in the 1st, 1 in the 2nd, 1 in the 3rd. He took next to no damage in that fight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 30-26 across all scorecards. You know, there's a 10-8 in there against Tony Ferguson. That's saying something big. But then we had the war against Michael Chandler when he was cut. He was almost caught in a guillotine. He was knocked down. It's almost finished in that 1st round. Dustin Poirier knocked him down, cut him up. Justin Gaethje knocked him down within the first couple of... I mean, the fight only lasted a little under 3.5 minutes, but Justin Gaethje knocked him down. Justin Gaethje cut him.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the styles of Justin Gaethje and Johnny Walker remind me a lot of Charles Oliveira. He's out there. He's a bit wild with his shots. He's
floppy in a way.
He'll throw a jumping switch knee, but a question I want to ask you is, how long do you think Charles can maintain that kind of a style where he does take a lot of damage? Chandler, Poirier, Gaethje, a lot of damage accumulated, and that's all since May last year. We're not even sort of 18 months removed from the Michael Chandler fight. How much is that damage going to have built up and built up and built? We always say Nate Diaz has got the scar tissue, so you land a jab on Nate Diaz and suddenly he's bleeding, but it doesn't mean anything. What effect does that damage have on Charles Oliveira? The damage that he's taken across just the last 3 fights, let alone a UFC career that spanned since he was 20 years old.
Well, and that's the stuff I was going to add as well. Of like the last 3 fights, he took tremendous damage being knocked down. But even remember the Paul Felder fight where he was just bludgeoned for 3 straight rounds. I would conventionally say that doesn't bode well for a person's longevity. And if he does have like 5 fights at the top and then kind of fades away, that's still a really great career he put together. But you got to think this has to start wearing on him sooner rather than later, right?
For sure. Is it going to be Makhachev? Is the I wouldn't say luck, because he makes his own luck by being so phenomenal. You don't get the all-time finishes and all-time subs record by luck. But is his luck going to run out in for want of a better word against Islam Makhachev? I'm not so sure, because I think what really matters is if you look at the guys that he's faced, the last 5 guys that he's faced, Kevin Lee fought Tony Ferguson for a vacant title, came up short, so he's a title contender. Tony Ferguson, former vacant lightweight title holder, multiple times should have been on paper, as we've alluded to, title challenger. Michael Chandler, former Bellator title holder, well regarded in the hardcore MMA sort of circles. He doesn't get fights with Justin Gaethje, doesn't beat Tony Ferguson, doesn't get a fight with Dustin Poirier if he's an average guy coming over. Dustin Poirier, maybe the best guy to never win an undisputed title at lightweight. He's in that conversation for sure. And Justin Gaethje, a former 2-time title, or he held the vacant title, didn't he? Then he faced Khabib, WSOF title holder. The caliber of opponent that Charles Oliveira is fighting. He fought Anthony. Yes, he lost, but he fought Anthony Pettis, Jim Miller, Clay Guida, as you alluded to, Paul Felder, Will Brooks back in the day. We're going to Miles Jory, Max Holloway, Jeremy Stevens. Cub Swanson. You're going back as far as Donald Cerrone, Jim Miller again. He debuted against Darren Elkins. Darren Elkins is never going to be a world champion, but he's a tough guy to put away. And Charles submitted him in 41 seconds. The caliber of fighter that Charles Oliveira has fought in comparison to Islam Makhachev, I think, is what might give him the edge in this one. Now, no disrespect to any of the guys that Makhachev has faced, but I think the best guy he's faced is Arman Tsarukyan, and that was back in 2019. Since then, Davi Hamosh, good fighter, but not top 20 in my opinion. Drew Dober, the nearly man, he's again a good fighter, probably not even bring top 15 at the moment with the guys at lightweight. Thiago Moises, good, but that was a dominant fight, and that was on late notice for Moises. Dan Hooker at the time, not a top 15 guy. He was coming off that one win against Nasrat Haqparast, but he'd just been knocked out by Michael Chandler. He'd just gone to war with Dustin Poirier, and then Bobby Green again. Bobby Green got that fight because he'd won 2 in a row, but that was against Aya Quinter, who he knocked out within less than half a round, and Nasrat Haqparast himself, who again, as we've alluded to, is not a top 15 guy. Also, Bobby Green's style lends itself to Islam Makhachev. He shoulder rolls, a lot, and it's an exciting style when you're facing a striker. But if you shoulder roll against a wrestler, what's the closest thing to your opponent? Not your head, it's your hips. Yeah, and as we saw in that, we're back. Yeah, one takedown before Bobby Green, succumbed to the pressure of Islam Makhachev. He's never faced a guy in the top 10. Aside from, I think Dan Hooker was maybe ranked in the top 10 when they faced each other, but again, this is a Dan Hooker that he was 2-1 in his last. 1-2 in his last 3 fights prior to facing Islam Makhachev. And again, Dan Hooker's got a style that lends itself to Islam Makhachev. Yes, that City
That's
kickboxing
true.
team has got a notoriously good takedown defense record.
Yes.
But Dan Hooker himself looks to, similar to Bobby Green, is to lean out of the way of shots.
Yeah. Giving your hips up.
Exposing your hips. I don't think, even if Makhachev takes Oliveira down to the ground, which, let's be honest, 3.41 takedowns per 15 minutes. This is a 25-minute fight with an accuracy of 65%. That 65%, I think, there should be an asterisk next to that 65% because he is so relentless. He doesn't get the first, but he'll chain it to the second, to the third, to the fourth until he gets his fight to the floor.
Yes.
I don't recall watching many of Islam Makhachev's fights where he's struggled to get his opponent to the floor. I think the most difficulty we've seen was against Aljamain Sterling, but that was a freak fight of two elite wrestlers who, Sterling probably takes anyone down that he faces, apart from Islam Makhachev. He took him down 1 out of 12 attempts. Mm-hmm. Islam Makhachev took Sterling down 4 out of 9. But again, it's chain wrestling. It's, okay, I haven't got you with the first shot, but I've now got you up against the fence where I'll sort of look to take you down. Okay, you bounce back up, I'll take you down again. I'll hold you down for, half a round or whatever. It's important. I think Islam Makhachev, like we said off the top, his style lends itself. Charles Oliveira wants to fight on the floor.
Yeah.
Islam Makhachev wants to take the fight to the floor. How does that play out?
Yeah.
I am excited for it.
I agree with you as well, because there's just so many interesting folds, like you were alluding to, in terms of like Islam Makhachev's relentless takedowns. Well, he's not going to need it. He's going to get the takedown because Charles Oliveira is welcoming it. Cool. You want to go to the ground? Great. Charles Oliveira, Muay Thai on the feet, especially from the mid to the close range. That's some dangerous stuff. I think Islam Makhachev also has like his relentless takedowns, and the reason that he lost, he's not Khabib. He's more reckless than Khabib is. He's willing to take a lot more damage when he shouldn't be taking damage, stuff like that. Whereas Khabib had like almost a very good like seventh sense of being aware of like, when is the takedown, when are the strikes coming? Islam is just like, he's constantly in on it. But I will say the weakness that we have mostly seen from Charles Oliveira, especially in his like second career, there's the first career where it's clearly durability was his issue. His second career, where durability is not an issue, is now strength somehow. But his constant weakness has been top position wrestlers. Paul Felder took him down and ground and pounded him. Even if you look at the Kevin Lee fight, which I rewatched for research, Kevin Lee was landing ground and pound. And Kevin Lee and Paul Felder are not the acumen of wrestlers that an Islam Makhachev is. So this is the stuff of like, we're just putting it here on the table. This is great. Like looking at all these different folds and all this different stuff that can happen. These are the things that make you wonder of what's going to happen. If you're putting, but we gotta give like a soft prediction at least. I know it's going to be violent. It's going to be back and forth. I think we're going to see tons of like momentum shifts. This person's on top. This person's getting a submission. This is going to be an insane fight, is what I imagine. But yeah, if you have to pick someone, you have to pick someone who is walking away with the vacant UFC gold.
Alex Oliveira. No, not Alex.
What?
Oliveira.
What did you say?
Volkanovski. Alex Volkanovski is walking away lightweight. No.
I hope so. That'd be even better. Yeah. That'd be great.
Similar to you, I've got a piece coming out on the site this week, Keys to Victory for Islam Makhachev. I've got a video coming out, I think, tomorrow on the YouTube channel of a stats breakdown, just literally UFC stats, looking at the stats and what they might allude to for the main event. I've got a co-main event that we'll go on to talk about, and I'm going to cover the Petr Yan Aljo fight. Sorry. Awesome. I'm so used to saying Petr Yan Aljo. It's Aljo, TJ, Petr Yan, Sean O'Malley. It just seems like those two have been fighting for about 2 years now. But no, in this one, it's so difficult because why wouldn't you pick Islam Makhachev? He's been so dominant in his past. Just if you just look at his past 3 wins, Thiago Moises, Dan Hooker, Bobby Green, he's been so dominant across them. But I think anybody else that hasn't got Khabib in their corner, doesn't get a title shot with a win over Thiago Moises, Dan Hooker, and Bobby Green. No disrespect to any of those guys, but I just don't think it happens. I'm going to pick Charles Oliveira, and not with any confidence. And that's no disrespect to Charles Oliveira. Yes. But like you say, Kevin Lee, and this is a Kevin Lee that wasn't on the kind of, it wasn't straight up off a title shot. Let me quickly check who Kevin Lee had fought prior to fighting Charles Oliveira.
Oh, he kicked Gregor Gillespie into oblivion.
Exactly,
but that was his only win in a few years. Before that, he was like,
he lost to Tony Ferguson in the vacant title fight. He then beat Barboza, but was on, wobbly legs in that one. Dominated by Iaquinta across 5 rounds, subbed by RDA. Then he knocked Gregor Gillespie into the shadow realm. Then he lost to Charles Oliveira. Then he lost after Charles. He lost to Daniel Rodriguez. So this isn't a guy who's got notoriously, he's not top of the food chain guy.
But he got on top. He got on top of Oliveira.
Exactly. He got, and I mean, Paul Felder. Paul Felder's a Muay Thai striker, kickboxer. Trains with Duke Rufus. He's not a guy who's going to take you down and ground and pound you. Otherwise, he wouldn't train at that gym straight up. And yet he did. Brutally knocked out Charles Oliveira in, was that the second or third round? It's second round. Yeah. So it's trending towards an Islam Makhachev win, but I can just almost see Makhachev. I've been watching some tape and the same as you, and in my Keys to Victory, there's a sequence when Makhachev faced Wade way back in, I think, I can't remember exactly when the fight was. I'll just double check now. So yeah, way back in 2016, Makhachev shot him for a takedown, was caught in a guillotine by Chris Wade. If that happened, Charles Oliveira finishes that guillotine and the fight's over. Straight up. Probably. Islam Makhachev cannot make any mistakes on the ground because Oliveira will just snatch some sort of limb or more than likely snatch a neck. But I am going to softly pick Charles Oliveira by submission, and I think that potentially is, I think Islam Makhachev dominates until he loses in a weird sense of a pick. I think Islam Makhachev probably dominates the first round. Charles Oliveira is a notoriously fast starter. Islam Makhachev said he's going to try and make reads in that first round. Well, how can you make reads if you're constantly being pressured with your back up against the fence? But, I think Makhachev probably just takes him down at will. And maybe, third, I think late in the third, fourth, or maybe even in the fifth, when Makhachev has got that confidence of, okay, maybe I can't finish this guy on the ground. He's being defensively aware. I'm just going to take him down and dominate him. Okay, he's got back to his feet. I'm going to take him down. Oh shit, I've just woken up looking at the ceiling. I've been choked out. I think that's what might happen is Makhachev almost gets a little bit excited and a little bit, just he almost cruises to being able to take down Oliveira at will. I'm just going to take him down. And then Oliveira might catch him in a guillotine or something to that effect. As Makhachev thinking, like I say, I'm just going to take this fight down as and when I want to. No, I've got nothing coming back. I'm not worried about the sort of the threat off his back because I've been ground and pounding for 2-3 rounds now. And then I think Oliveira might snatch a neck if he gets a little bit sort of lazy, almost complacent.
I can definitely see that. He just figures out where the arm bar is or something weird like that happens, or he catches a knee on entry. I think what we're getting to is that Islam it should, on paper, style-wise, win. Charles has more tools to win, but he also has much more experience. When you combine a little bit more tools with a little bit more experience, if the durability is there, this should be a Charles Oliveira win. But like you said, if it goes the other way, I'm not even surprised. I know that you and I especially, have been very critical of Islam Makhachev's record, but I could still see him winning this fight.
For sure.
But, I'm still going to be picking Charles in this one. It's crazy. When we were putting together notes and watching videos for this one, these two are so seared in our memories that I'm sure both of us were just like, yeah, whatever. I'm not going to write anything down. I know these guys are just in my head.
I've got the UFC stats website just to check specifics. And aside from that, we watch all of the... no disrespect to Alexa Grasso and Vivian Araujo that fought this weekend. Didn't watch the fight because I'm not really that bothered about it. But B, I would have had to look at... aside from, for Alexa Grasso, I remember her fight against Joanne Calderwood where I think she choked her out, and her fight against Macy Barber because I just remember how bad Barber was. She was fainting from the other side of the octagon. That's the only fights I remember of those two women. And Tatiana Suarez when she beat Alexa Grasso back in the day. But... for these guys, you don't have to watch hours and hours. We watch hours and hours of tape to get specific sequences and movements for try and pick up on the trends of both guys. But we don't have to think, who did Oliveira fight? Like he of course he fought Justin Gaethje in that war. Then he fought Justin Poirier in the war before that. And I remember the first round of Justin Poirier in the Poirier fight. just an absolute crazy frenetic pace. And I think, I mean, if I'm Islam Makhachev, I'm not only water loading to make the weight, but then afterwards I'm water loading. So in Abu Dhabi, in a hot climate, I sweat a lot in the octagon so that I can slip out of, I know as ridiculous as that might sound, but he wants to be in there. He wants to be sweating so he can slip out of submissions. It's going to be a lot easier for him to slip out of submissions than it would in a dry Las Vegas desert. And
that's actually a good point. That's a fair point. Yeah.
You know, in all seriousness, you know, Joanne Calderwood spoke about how hot it is in the arena when she fought. I think she fought Chookagian. I can't remember when Khabib and Gaethje fought. I think, or Khabib and Poirier. I can't remember off the top of my head which fight, which pay-per-view it was. But Joanne Calderwood was like, it is so hot in there. Not only is it hot outside, but you're then in the arena and you've got the lights on top of you. You're sweating a lot, and all the commentators have commented on it. That's going to make it harder for submission straight up. We know from listening to commentary and from listening and from watching fights, the later, you know, a submission is easier to get earlier on in the fight because the guys aren't sweaty and they can just lock in onto essentially a dry neck, a dry arm. If you can slip out using sort of utilizing the sweat and the climate to your ability, as ridiculous as it might sound, I know that, you know, people will be listening to this thinking that we're crazy, but the theory behind it works.
Well, yeah, this is why the theory behind it, absolutely. This is why George St. Pierre was accused of greasing, because it is easier to escape submissions or escape a person's guard. Back in the day, I think Big John McCarthy was talking about this during the greasing accusations, but he said some fighters, like especially the shiny ones, Frank Shamrock, Ken Shamrock, were accused of this, but they used to do like a soapy bath before a fight. Now that sounds stupid, but soap would then, because you're not allowed to oil, you're not allowed to grease, but soap would dry to your skin, and then when you sweat, it becomes more and more slippery. So these guys, like, greasing has been around forever. Slipping out of submissions is not a new thing. If you can find some weird technique to escape submissions, I mean, use it. It is your arm. It is life or death. There is a UFC championship on the line. And I hate to bring out Tito Ortiz, but if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
And, you know, you need all the help you can get to try and slip out of a Charles Oliveira submission, because his record speaks for itself. Yes. He can submit pretty much anybody at whatever time he wants.
Oh, just amazing time. But let's move down. So we're going from maybe the most prestigious division in the UFC to the most stacked division in the UFC. Aljamain Sterling, finally, he is an undisputed champion. The Phenom is finally living up to what he always should have been. He looked so good in his first several fights, and we knew this kid was so deserving, and he's made it. So now he's defending his undisputed championship against the previously suspended due to EPO, coming back to reclaim his throne, TJ Dillashaw. It's a great fight. It's a style contrast. I genuinely don't really know what's going to happen in this fight. I think as much as like the main event is unpredictable, this one, like, you could throw out any dumb prediction and I'd be like, yeah, sure. Yeah, submission, TKO for one guy, decision. Yeah, that all makes sense. I genuinely don't know what to expect in this fight, but Aljamain Sterling, TJ Dillashaw for the bantamweight title. Fraser, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's the storyline going into it is exciting. You know, TJ Dillashaw's got the chance to become a 3-time bantamweight champion. Obviously, the first time he lost it to Dominic Cruz, second time he lost it to EPO. You know, and this is his third opportunity to gain the bout. Now, I think Sterling's going to be riding a lot of momentum coming off that win against Petr Yan. Obviously, he got the controversial victory when he got the DQ. Mm-hmm. I think the second fight, I think he rightfully won the fight 3-2. I think he took the first, off the top of my head, it's the first 3 rounds. The second and third round were undisputable. You know, he dominated Petr Yan. Mm-hmm. He's been hanging out with Andrew Tate this week, which makes me kind of want him to lose. But then
I didn't want to bring it up.
Andrew Tate is, for want of a better word, a wank. But, you know,
I didn't want to bring it up. I was like, man, Twitter was rough yesterday.
The UFC outside of the fighting this week has really pissed me off. Signing Hasbulla, all that shit. Signing with Meta, saying, "Oh, look at this, we're doing this, we're doing that."
VR fights now.
VR fights, which are cool, but pay your fighters and then put that, you know, outside of the octagon and outside of UFC 280, the fights can't be bothered with the UFC this week. I think it's been shit. But
did you see Dana White? The registering for Dana White and Lorenzo are registering for a slap fighting. How close are we?
I knew there was something else, and it's just like I can't be asked. But luckily,
this is a circus act. We're lucky to be here. Like this is so silly sometimes. Anyway, the fights are great.
Yeah, the fights are good, but you've then got guys trying to promote the fights, talking to that knobhead Andrew Tate. But luckily we've got a fight on our hands. TJ, yes. I think this is going to come down to, on my stats video, I kind of alluded to the fact that I think this will come down to wrestling. And on paper, Aljamain Sterling is not a very good wrestler. 21% takedown accuracy, failed what felt like hundreds of times in their first fight against Petr Yan, which essentially gassed him out and, led to him losing the fight until Yan, one of 17 takedowns. Mm-hmm. And that one takedown was landed in the first round and he got 27 seconds control time. That's not good if you're Aljamain Sterling. If you look back through his past fights, 0 of 7 takedowns against Pedro Munoz, 0 of 7 against Jimmy Rivera. He landed 2 of 9 against Cody Stamann, and he landed 2 of 22 against Petr Yan. Now, yes, those two, you didn't need an awful lot else out. In those two, he got the fight to the ground. His chain wrestling was phenomenal, and he dominated Petr Yan on the ground when he got him there. But in that last round, 0 of 10 takedown attempts against Petr Yan. Now, you compare that to TJ Dillashaw takedown defense, 86%. And yes, he hasn't fought, Lineker, Garbrandt, Cejudo didn't really last long. Sandhagen didn't really look to take him down. He's not facing the sort of, his last 5 fights. Like, Cejudo is a wrestler, but that one ended in under 30 seconds, so he didn't even need to use his wrestling in that one. But yeah, Lineker, Garbrandt twice. Garbrandt, I think, probably shot for a takedown. Off the top of my head, I can't quite remember, but I imagine he shot for a takedown after he was rocked. Sandhagen, not a wrestler, very much a long kickboxer with a sort of boxing background.
Yep.
He's not being tested in the takedown sort of realm, the wrestling realm, as it were, all that often. But that doesn't take away the fact that he's got an 86% takedown defense against Aljamain Sterling, who is a volume takedown guy, rather than, like we say, a Makhachev who can, fail on one takedown, then he'll go for the next, and then get you to the ground and hold you there. Aljamain Sterling will fail on a takedown, reset, go again for the takedown, reset, go again for the takedown, and reset. He doesn't chain together that wrestling as well as someone like an Islam Makhachev, which probably is why he's got the 21% takedown accuracy. It's going to be difficult, I think, I can't ever picture TJ Dillashaw being controlled on the ground, especially in recent memory. But TJ is an old, I think, he's 35, 36 now. He's an old 35, 36. He's had his, when he was out with his suspension, he got 2 shoulder surgeries. He then had to have his knee operated on, I'm pretty sure. He suffered a bad knee injury anyway against Corey Sandhagen last time out. He's an old 35, 36, or he's an old bantamweight, And we know that he's a big guy. Yes, he cut down to flyweight at that time, but we know that was sort of helped by EPO, as it were. But, it's not, these big cuts aren't helping him at all. I've seen pictures of him. He's absolutely shredded.
Yep.
But how much is that going to take out of him before the fight? He has only made weight once since let's ignore the Henry Cejudo flyweight thing. He's made bantamweight once since 2018. He then fought in July last year, making the weight. How much is that weight going to take out of him? I don't for 1 minute think that he's going to miss weight, but I think that how much of a detrimental effect is that going to take on him against someone like Aljamain Sterling, who is, again, shredded. These guys haven't got a lot of weight to cut.
Yep.
Their muscles are going to hold on to the water and maybe be a little bit more reluctant to sort of let that water go. But we'll have to see. The weight itself, I don't think will be an issue for either guy, but it's just how much that will take out of them on fight night. It's exciting for sure. But yeah, for me, I think this comes down to the wrestling. I think TJ's got the advantage in this one.
Yeah, and DJ also had a better wrestling acumen, being an NCAA qualified wrestler. Alja was an NCAA D3 wrestler, where and neither of them really had success in NCAA, whatever division they were in. They certainly weren't champions or even top 5 or anything like that. However, qualifying for them does say quite a bit. The wrestling thing, TJ was of that team alpha male of like, we're all wrestlers, but now we're gonna reinvent what footwork actually looks like. He defends takedowns just mainly with footwork, things like that. He also has that, like, the reason that we talk about TJ in such high degree of, like, if you made a pound for pound list of the greatest, most talented fighters, just looking at talent of all time, I think TJ would honestly be top 5 in terms of how skilled he is. Like the stuff that he was able to do, he's outstriking guys like Cody Garbrandt. He's outstriking guys like, Sun Salin Lineker when it mattered, when he really had to do it. He was outstriking Renan Barão when it mattered. At the top of Renan Barão's career, he was there. And now, like you said, like just injuries, knee suspensions, weight issues. He's coming in now as the smaller guy, whereas Aljo has just had 2 frenetic fights against Petr Yan in a row. Yeah, a lot of these things do factor together. But if you're just looking at paper, I have to think, because Aljamain Sterling is actually a fairly serviceable striker. He is just he's very long in there, so he often looks quite
flowy in there,
Yeah, and he is serviceable. I'm not sure how he is in the second and third layer. I do think he's a serviceable striker in that he'll strike on the first layer because he's trying to get a takedown essentially, whereas TJ is such an accomplished striker everywhere he goes. Fifth, we're talking about third layer exchanges against him and Cody Garbrandt for a reason. Like, that stuff was really impressive. But in the Sandhagen fight, you did see the stuff that you do want to see of someone going into a championship of, like, he was struggling on the feet against a longer striker, but he dug deep. In his age, he's still able to dig deep and really find that, like, that fortitude when he needs to find his fortitude. That does bode well for him. Aljamain Sterling, although on the flip side, Aljamain Sterling should have every advantage going into this fight. He's got a really impressive win streak. He looked good in a lot of those wins as well against named people, relevant wins within the last 3 years. Whereas he's gotten an entire career together since 2018, like 7 wins in a row since 2018, where TJ has 1 win. You have to think this is probably a Sterling fight. Although if TJ does do it, that is one of the most impressive careers anyone has ever put together.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like I say, it's looking to become a 3-time bantamweight champion whilst also having gone down to flyweight to try and become that champion. Yes, that's got an asterisk next to it for the EPO and the fact that he did it. He did lose that fight. EPO aside, he was knocked out in that fight.
Yeah.
Simple as.
Yeah. Sucks.
What I think is interesting is I think TJ Dillashaw is a far more technical striker. Working with Duane Ludwig.
Yes.
I think he's got far more sort of strings to his bow, as it were, than Aljamain Sterling, who is essentially a 1-2 roundhouse, either high or body kick, but he's always wanting to corral his opponents up against the fence.
Yeah.
I think Aljamain Sterling is happy to sit on TJ Dillashaw and backpack him for as long as it takes to win this fight, whereas I think TJ really wants to make a statement. I think it's difficult because Aljamain Sterling, did he fight that way against Petr Yan because he kind of had to, because Petr Yan was such a superior boxer and he had the superior power and he had the superior, well, he had solid takedown defense. Did he have to fight like that against Petr Yan? Will he have to fight like that against TJ Dillashaw? Does Dillashaw have that one-hit power to sort of concern Aljamain Sterling? Or is it going to be more that, TJ has an accumulation and can hit those angles that Sterling can't quite catch him at, that will cause him to struggle in this one? I think I probably, you say it's a Sterling win. I'm kind of edging on the side of Dillashaw slightly because I just think that he has the more well-rounded game. I think, again, we haven't seen, similar to the guys in the main event, we don't often see, we don't see Makhachev fight off his back. We don't see Sterling fight off his back an awful lot. I think TJ could potentially mix it in, look to counter a Sterling. Sterling's going to shoot for the takedown within the first 2 minutes of the round. Without that, whether he gets it or not, he's shooting.
Yes.
And I think, TJ could counter that takedown with a sort of scramble and get top position of his own. We haven't seen Sterling off his back an awful lot. I'm leaning towards TJ Dillashaw by unanimous decision, or even, I don't see him finishing it. Sterling won't finish this on the feet. He doesn't have the power. He finished one fight in 2014, I think, by TKO in the UFC. That's it. He's not a power striker. He's a volume striker to get the fight to the floor, and he's going to submit you or just sort of backpack you like he did to Petr Yan. I think the first round is going to tell us how this fight's going to go. If Sterling can't land the takedown sort of in the first round and dominate, I think it's a TJ Dillashaw fight. If he can, I think it's a Sterling fight. Unfortunately, we can't pick the fight after the first round because that kind of negates the point. But I think that first round is going to be vital in this one.
I agree with you. And this is why there's just so many variables of, like you say, TJ. Yeah, totally fair. This is totally reasonable. There's just so many variables in this fight that we end up leaning back on the stuff that we don't love to really say, which are like sports isms of like who's tougher, who has more fortitude in this fight, which are often just ways of saying like we don't know. But I think that is completely warranted in this matchup of like, yeah, sure, who has more intestinal fortitude, who is more durable, who's willing to dig deeper when all the chips are down. I think the sports isms are absolutely appropriate for this bantamweight showdown. Anything else you want to say on it before we move forward?
No, to be honest, I think we pretty much covered it, and now we'll go into the next bantamweight fight, where, as you said, then it's a very difficult one to call. For me, this is a very easy one to call.
Well, even when it was booked, this is the thing. We all know we're picking Petr Yan. He's the better striker. He's the more accomplished striker. This is rank number 1 versus rank number 12 for a reason. He's just coming off title fights. He's beaten guys like Jose Aldo and Uriah Faber and Corey Sandhagen in very meaningful ways. He looked good doing those wins against Sean O'Malley, whose wins are against guys who don't even fight in the UFC anymore or have a losing record in the UFC. I couldn't even hype it up. I couldn't even hype up Sean.
I believe that Sean O'Malley is a real talent.
Yeah, he's a great striker. Clearly, he's a good striker.
Never faced anybody. Oh, sorry, he's never beaten anybody who is a good fighter, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, Eddie Wineland. He beat Eddie Wineland.
Eddie Wineland's now, I think, retired or cut from the UFC or something like that.
For sure. And before he knocked out Eddie Wineland, Eddie 1 and 2.
Yeah.
In his past 3, and he was very inactive. He lost in 2017, lost in 2018, won in 2019, knocked out by Sean a year later in 2020. You then, Marlon Vera obviously lost to, which I think is a real good fight to look at in when talking about this Petr Yan fight. Thomas Almeida at the time was 3 losses on the bounce. Chris Martino had to be brought into the UFC to fight
get beat up
to fight Sean O'Malley, and Sean could barely get him out of there. I thought Chris Martino deserved to see the final bell in that one. And Rui Paiva is a career flyweight. He had 1 win up at bantamweight against Kyler Phillips, which surprised a lot of people.
That's a good one.
But he's not a career. If you're getting hit by someone as heavy as Sean O'Malley, you want to be a career featherweight dropping down, or you want to be a big bantamweight.
Yeah.
Against Pedro Munoz, I think it's a difficult fight to score because Pedro was slamming the leg kick, and I think that, and I know it's an easy get out for me to always say, work the low leg kick, because I'm such a fan of it. I think it's so. I mean, we saw in the Cub Swanson fight. Cub Swanson this weekend got absolutely brutalized by leg kicks.
Yeah,
but Petr Yan needs to absolutely batter the leg kick of Sean O'Malley, because he's still, even after that Marlon Vera fight, not even the Marlon Vera fight, it was dating back to his second UFC fight against Andrei Sukumtar. He got the leg injury in that one, and he still hasn't quite adapted to defending the leg kick. I think Petr Yan can throw and land that leg kick with no danger of being taken down. I don't think Sean O'Malley's got the wrestling to take Petr Yan down. I think the most interesting and the most intriguing is whether because I think Sean O'Malley is a massive talent. I think that he knock Petr Yan out. Yes, I think he could knock anyone out of bantamweight. Do I think he's going to knock Petr Yan out? Absolutely not, because I think Petr Yan's just too good. I just think Petr Yan is too good a fighter, too good a striker, too elusive to be knocked out by Sean O'Malley, who does throw long looping shots, who, you know, he feints a lot with his head. Well, Petr Yan's a bit of a slow starter in the first sort of 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah,
so he's got to step his foot on the gas slightly with this one, because it is only a 3-round fight. You know, he hasn't had a 3-round fight. I was looking last night since the Uriah Faber fight. Look what happened in that fight. You know, I'm not saying Uriah Faber and Sean O'Malley are on the same level, but look what happened in that fight. If people like Aljamain Sterling and Uriah Faber can't take Petr Yan to the ground, Sean O'Malley hasn't got a chance, with the greatest respect to Sean. Sean can land on Petr Yan, but it's what Petr Yan throws back at Sean O'Malley, I think, is going to sort of answer our questions in this one. You know, can Sean O'Malley land on Petr Yan? Without a doubt, he's got a 5-inch reach advantage, 4-inch height advantage. So he's not only taller, but he's slightly longer as well.
Yeah.
But Petr Yan won't just shell up and allow Sean O'Malley to pick him off from the outside. Petr Yan will corral Sean O'Malley up against the fence, batter the legs, and really hamper his movement. And I'm probably picking Yan by unanimous decision, which is ironic, because I do think that he hits hard enough and he slams the leg kick enough to be able to really struggle, you know, really cause Sean O'Malley some struggle. But I just don't see. I think Sean O'Malley might just do enough. He might get rocked. He might be shelled up against the fence, and I can see him sort of almost shaking his head at Petr Yan, saying, "No, you didn't land on me there. You didn't, no danger." But realistically, I think Petr Yan's going to come away with the win. If you look at the fights that, he's gone 25 minutes with Sterling. He went 25 minutes with Sandhagen. He went best part of 20 odd minutes with Sterling the first time. He finished Jose Aldo, finished Uriah Faber, and you compare that to Sean O'Malley. It's a little bit like the main event where Islam Makhachev hasn't had the competition that Charles Oliveira has, but I do think that Islam Makhachev is just a more skilled fighter and has more keys to victory against Charles Oliveira than Sean O'Malley does against Petr Yan. With that being said, if Sean O'Malley wins, he's fighting the winner of the co-main event. Without a doubt, they are going to strap a rocket to Sean O'Malley and give him the next title shot. And, there's no taking a step back now for Sean O'Malley. He's always said, on the current contract I am, why am I going to fight guys at the top of the division? He's been given a new contract and he's been handed Petr Yan. Even if he loses to Petr Yan, it doesn't matter if he's knocked out within the first 10 seconds or if he goes the distance. He gets another top 10 guy after this, Rob Font, probably not a Merab, but maybe a Corey Sandhagen, a Song Yadong. There's no, with the greatest respect, Chris Martino's, Thomas Almeida's on the horizon for Sean O'Malley anymore. It's top 10, maybe even, depending on how he looks against Petr Yan, top 5 guys. I think even with a loss, if he looks good, he can move up in the rankings. He's got nothing to lose. Sean O'Malley is not meant to win this fight, judging by the rankings and judging by his past experience. He's got nothing to lose. Petr Yan's got everything to lose. He's let's be honest, he's on the brink of another title shot.
Yes.
He beat Corey Sandhagen. He hasn't faced, TJ's a new fight for him. Merab's a new fight for him. He's narrowly lost to Sterling once, and then you've got the controversy in the first fight. With a win here, Petr Yan is straight back in the title picture. Maybe a Marlon Vera or a Sandhagen or a TJ Dillashaw next gets him or a Merab gets him a title shot. But if he loses to Sean O'Malley, he drops right down the rankings and Sean O'Malley takes his place. And then Sean O'Malley fights for the title. I think, Petr Yan's got everything to lose and not an awful lot to gain by beating Sean O'Malley. And it's the complete opposite. Sean O'Malley, like I say, with a loss, probably still goes up in the rankings and has got everything to gain by beating Petr Yan and nothing to lose. You lose to a guy who was the champion, who is only fights in 5-round fights usually, who's just coming off a title fight, who is notorious for being an absolute beast in there. And you lose to him. Well, so is pretty much everyone not named Aljamain Sterling in the UFC. So, like I said, Sean O'Malley's got nothing to lose. So why not just go out there and put it all on the line? I think he will do.
And I think so too. And I think I almost disagree with what you're. Hey, we're in agreement on the Petr Yan win. I think Petr finds that opening. I think he finds that opening because what Sean O'Malley does And the reason it looks so good in highlights is he's doing pull counters constantly. He's kind of doing the same timing on pull counters all the time. Someone like Petr Yan could just time that. He's got it figured out. Like, he's fought better strikers. Petr Yan spends his free time, like when he's not fighting the best of the division, he spends his time sparring guys. And we've seen videos of he's sparring Alexander Volkanovski. He's sparring Israel Adesanya at Tiger Muay Thai. You know, he trains with like Rafael Fiziev, people like this. Like, that's what he does for fun. I don't think Sean O'Malley is going to show him anything new. Oh, like, oh, wow, a pull counter. I never thought of, like, I think he's just going to knock him out. But he's going to take his time doing that, like what Joe Rogan always says, like, take a minute to download the data, see his timing, see his movement. I think this is a showcase fight for Petr Yan. I think he walks away with a good new highlight reel on his victory, all that stuff. But yeah, I just don't see a lot of ways that Sean O'Malley can really get to it. Yeah, that's all I can really throw out this card. I think Sean O'Malley he's a UFC dream though, of like, this is what you want. Sure. Someone who can promote themselves. He's one of the most famous people in the UFC, and his record's not that impressive. I didn't know what you were going to say.
I completely agree. I think, unlike the co-main and the main event is where we kind of see that the co-main and the main can literally go either way. I cannot see how Sean O'Malley wins this unless he unless he catches Petr Yan and Petr Yan sort of, goes out there and make a mistake. But we've seen from Petr Yan time and time again that he doesn't make mistakes, which is what makes him so good. With that being said, I'm still crazy excited for this fight.
Yes.
I still really think that this fight is going to be a really good fight. It's going to be an entertaining fight because Petr Yan should go out and win it. But Sean O'Malley is, on paper, maybe one of the hardest hitters at bantamweight.
True.
So it's still an exciting fight. I'm still going to tune in for it. I'm still going to watch it. I'm still going to be on the edge of my seat for as long as it lasts. Because Petr Yan, we haven't seen him actually finish anyone with strikes since Uriah Faber. Sean O'Malley, we see him finish people with strikes all the time, but we know that he's got his flaws. Can Petr Yan, expose those flaws? I'm going to be on the edge of my seat for this one, as I am for the co-main, as I am for the main. I'm just going to be stuck the entire night, I think.
Oh, I'm so excited. And for us, it's like it's at a normal human being time. I'm so excited. I'm so bummed for it. Okay, let's move on to the next one because it's a great one too. Beneil Dariush versus Mateusz Gamrot. Beneil Dariush put together some impressive wins in the last few. He has been out for a little while because he gave birth to a Tesla or something like that. I'm getting lines mixed up here, but something like that. He's been away for a minute, and now he's coming back against Mateusz Gamrot. I'm going to be honest with you. I've never been that impressed with Beneil Dariush in terms of, like, he seems slow. He seems hittable often. He just seems so, like, the exact opposite of Clay Guida. You know what I mean? I'm actually going to pick Gamrot in this fight. Anyway, what do you think? Am I wrong? I'm probably wrong here.
No, I think it's a difficult one to pick because, I agree with that. This is going under the radar. This is a phenomenal fight, I think.
This is a fight night main event easily, right?
Without a doubt. And I'm not quite sure why they had a fairly uneventful, I don't want to say irrelevant, but a fairly non-event this weekend when they've got these two guys fighting the week after in a 3-rounder.
I know.
It is what it is. But Beneil Dariush, ranked number 6. Mateusz Gamrot, ranked number 9. I think Gamrot only lost his UFC debut against Kutateladze, but even Kutateladze said, look, I didn't win that fight.
Yeah.
Gamrot won that fight,
Yeah.
From what we've seen of Gamrot, he is very good.
Yes, he is.
Solid wherever the fight goes. We saw last time out, he managed to out-wrestle Aljamain Sterling, which is not an easy thing to do at all.
Yes.
We've seen him lock up a quick Kimura against Jeremy Stephens. We've seen him, knock out Diego Ferreira. With that being said, Beneil Dariush, like you said, at one point he was riding a three fight loss streak. Two losses and a draw. That jump flying knee from Edson Barboza, and he was caught cold by Alexander Hernandez. Undefeated since then. Armbar, Judoba, rear naked choke of Frank Camacho. That crazy fight with Drakkar Klose, which is constantly on his highlight. But and don't get me wrong, that is a phenomenal finish, and we love seeing that. And it was so exciting.
Yes.
Someone like Gamrot is not being caught with the shots that Drakkar Klose was caught with. No way in hell. And then he's beaten Diego Ferreira and he's beaten Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, I know.
it's difficult for me to see how Beneil Dariush wins this one in comparison to how Gamrot wins this one. I know Dariush is solid on the floor. He's got a takedown defense of 81%.
Sure.
But I think Gamrot gets him to the floor. And I think this goes 15 minutes with Gamrot kind of deciding where the fight's played out. I think Gamrot is the better fighter, and I think he's also got the higher ceiling, with the greatest respect to Beneil Dariush. I think he's got, Beneil was scheduled to fight Islam. I think he broke his leg in training even. We haven't seen Beneil fight for a long time, May 2021, and that's coming off an injury.
Yeah.
Gamrot's been active, since Dariush's last fight. He's fought 3 times, including a main event in June of this year where he went 25 hard minutes with Tsarukyan.
Hard minutes. Holy crap, that was a good fight too.
Exactly. I think Gamrot can put a pace on Dariush in this one, because he's like we said, like we were alluding to here, he's just gone 25 of some of the hardest minutes we've seen this year. Was it a fight of the year contender? No, because it wasn't particularly entertaining, but it was just grind. Just go. And I think, he lands 4.83 takedowns per 15 minutes, which would, you'd assume that he's going to just take. That's across just 5 fights, remember. That's only 5 fights, one of which finished quite early against Jeremy Stephens. I think that he's going to just look to ground Dariush and kind of control him. And, Dariush isn't a guy that's particularly easy to get out of there. I think he sort of grinds. But if I'm the UFC, I kind of want Gamrot to win, because Dariush isn't a big talker. He's not exactly a big ticket seller. And this could very, very much see the next big star or the next potential contender come out. If Michael Chandler beats Dustin Poirier, I think Michael Chandler gets the next shot. Simple as. Yeah,
I know.
But if he doesn't, maybe you set up a Gamrot Poirier for the number 1 contenders, and you've still got Gaethje, you've still got Fiziev, you've still got
Fiziev.
You still got all of these guys at lightweight that are there or thereabouts, and it's exciting. And I think the winner of this one really goes to that next level. And I think the loser takes a big step back in the rankings.
I agree. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I'm glad we're on the same page with Gamrot. I thought I was taking a risk there. Anyways, moving on to the next one. Quick paragraph for Katlyn Chookagian versus Manon Fiorot, someone who Alexa Grasso said, if I win, are you next for Valentina Shevchenko? And she said, no, the winner of Chookagian and Fiorot is probably next for Valentina Shevchenko, which is, that's not usually what you hear from fighters. But yeah, the French boxer versus the clinch. I've been there forever in the UFC. Who do you have?
Yeah, I've got betting tips out on the site later on this week. So if you want to potentially make a bit of money, be sure to check it out. But I can see, Manon Fiorot is probably the favorite going into this one, just because of this, she's 4-0 in her last 4. Yep. Only 4 in the UFC. Yep. She's only had 10 fights.
Yep.
4 of which have been in the UFC. So she's a talent without a doubt. And we saw it against her first 2 opponents when she finished both of them. We saw it against Jennifer Maia when she went the distance with Jennifer Maia last time out. But she does seem to fade slightly in these fights. Her output's the same, but there's not the same pop on her shots. Katlyn Chookagian, in the last fight against Amanda Ribas, she picked up in the last round considerably. And, it was a really good fight for Katlyn Chookagian, because there was, she with the greatest respect to Chookagian, she's a gatekeeper at 125. She was badly beaten by the champion when they faced. She hasn't got the sort of knockout power, but if you can't get past Chookagian, you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
If you look at the girls that Chookagian's lost to in the past sort of five years or so, Jessica Andrade, Valentina Shevchenko, and Jessica Eye, but I thought she actually won that fight. She's only got 4 losses in the UFC: Liz Carmouche, Jessica Eye, Valentina Shevchenko, Jessica Andrade. One former champion, the current champion, 2 former title challenges. She's knocked off Joanne Wood, Jennifer Maia twice, Amanda Ribas, Vivian Araujo, Cynthia Calvillo. Dominated Antonina Shevchenko, almost finished Shevchenko.
Yep.
And, I can see why people would pick Fiorot. She's probably the heavier hitter. It's going to be the battle of the side. This is side body kicks for me in this one. It's both these women don't like to. I mean, no one likes to be hit unless you're Charles Oliveira, but I don't think these 2 women like to stay in range for too long. They like to do their work, cut an angle, and get off. And I think Chookagian's experience, I think, I'm picking Chookagian in this one, of course, by unanimous decision, because she does not know how to finish fights, despite really, trying hard, especially in that final round. She's got a slightly longer reach, slightly taller girl, but a lot more high-level experience than Manon Fiorot. If I'm the UFC, I want Manon Fiorot to win. I think Katlyn Chookagian does win this one, unfortunately, for French MMA fans out there.
But yeah, Manon Fiorot, I do think she is the more talented fighter in that, like, if I'm picking a coach between these two, I want Manon as my coach. She's the better one out of the two. However, Katlyn Chookagian, like you said, she digs deep when she needs to. She finds ways to win when she's losing. She just has that grinding mentality. Yeah, like you said, it's probably a fair fight for Chookagian as well.
She's just got a black belt as well, so maybe we'll see her try and mix in a takedown and get, as she called her, that French chick to the floor. She's just got a black belt. Maybe she wants to show that off a little bit.
If you are, this is actually a fairly good fight to do it. This is pretty good. Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's move down. Belal Muhammad versus Sean Brady. Again, flying under the radar. You're talking about this could be a fight night main event easily. The undefeated Sean Brady. Is he going to continue just making his name for himself, continuing on this unbeatable, unstoppable streak against, remember the name, Belal Muhammad, who is a talented welterweight? I thought there was more coming, but that was it.
Yeah, he's talented. He's a solid wrestler. Is he a finisher?
Nah,
absolutely not. And I think it's strange for the UFC to put these guys opening up the card. Finishing off the prelims, and then having Katlyn Chookagian and Manon Fiorot opening up the main card. I don't see a finish in either of these. So you're looking at two fights that are pretty much guaranteed to go the distance, unless Sean O'Brady, Sean Brady, Sean O'Malley, or Sean Brady. Imagine Sean O'Brady's wrestling with Sean O'Malley's stand-up. But if you look at these two guys, they're just so similar. And this is just looking at the stats. Yes, Muhammad's got the sort of experience advantage, but he has suffered those 3 defeats where Sean O'Brady's undefeated at 15-0. Average fight time, just shy of the full 15 minutes. Both, 5'10", 5'11", 72-inch reach, 72-inch reach. 4 years difference. Sean Brady's 4 years younger, but that doesn't, at this level, it doesn't matter. Strikes landed per minute, pretty much the same. 0.4 differential. Accuracy, 11% differential in favor of Sean Brady, but strikes absorbed, again, the same. The takedowns is where I think this is going to be a wrestling match. I think this is where, it matters. A takedown accuracy of 60% for Sean Brady is pretty good. I know that's not a particularly high percentage, but if you're talking about, Islam Makhachev's got a lower takedown accuracy. Sean O'Brady strikes me as a kind of fight that Sean Brady. I keep calling O'Brady. I don't know why. Sean Brady. I'll stop saying Sean. Just Brady. He strikes me as the kind of guy who goes for a takedown, gets it, and holds his opponent there. And he goes for one takedown, then he's happy to strike. Last win against Michael Chiesa was phenomenal. Unanimous decision, 5 takedowns of 8 attempts against Chiesa, who is dangerous and knows how to handle himself on the floor. He's got wins over Jake Matthews, Noradia, Court McGee.
True.
These aren't bad guys. But then you compare that to Belal Muhammad. He's got a 91% takedown defense.
Yeah.
But with the greatest respect to Belal Muhammad, who's he fought that's an out-and-out wrestler in recent times? Let's just take it from 2021, going back as far as 2021. Diego Lima, not a takedown guy. Leon Edwards, that obviously only lasted 2 rounds, not a takedown guy. Damian Maia has never had good takedowns. And I think that 91% comes from this fight, maybe alone. 1 of 21 takedowns landed for Damian Maia.
Sorry.
Stephen Thompson, across 3 rounds, Belal Muhammad landed 7 takedowns. Of course, Thompson's accredited with shooting for 1 takedown. I'm not sure about that. And then across 5 rounds, Vicente Luque never looked to take him down. He hasn't really had to defend takedowns since the Damian Maia fight, and they're not wrestling takedowns, they're jiu-jitsu takedowns, they're Damian Maia takedowns, where you've got to constantly be aware of him taking you back, and it's safer just to kind of run it out of the way almost.
Yeah.
I think Sean Brady wins this one.
Yeah.
But I'm not, I don't see it being awfully entertaining because
No.
Belal Muhammad is, if you look down his record, he's finished 3 UFC fights since 2016, but he's finished 2 UFC fights since 2016, but
yeah,
the last one came in 2019 when he choked out Sato.
Yeah,
he's a distance fighter. He's a John Fitch style fighter, but he's got the personality on social media and whatnot to sort of kind of get by. But I think Brady, I do think Brady he's the next big welterweight contender. You've got Rakhmonov, you've got Brady, you've got Chimaev if he decides to come back down to 170.
Bring him in.
For me, I'm picking Brady to win this one fairly convincingly. I think he can take the fight down when he wants to, and I don't think he can get taken down all that easily. And he's a threat on the floor when he does get taken down. He's subbed 2 of his last 5 opponents, including Jake Matthews, who's not a bad guy on the floor. Let's be honest, he's not bad at all. And Michael Chiesa is dangerous on the floor, and Michael Chiesa couldn't finish him despite the fact that most of that fight was played out on the floor.
Yeah, no, I think this. Yeah, I agree with you. I am picking Sean Brady as well. But again, this isn't like a super technical analysis of something specific that I saw. It's just Belal Muhammad. I usually don't pick in fights anyway. Very similar to Beneil Dariush. Like I watched him pummel Diego Lima for 3 rounds and never be able to put him away. He just never looks overly talented, but he always grinds out a win. But I have to believe that the young upstart Sean Brady is the future. But yeah, let's move down the card here. The next one. I want to talk about Volkan Oezdemir versus Nikita Krylov. Both 2 losses and then 1 win in their most recent fight. They both won at UFC London not long ago. Both of them like hot prospects when they entered the UFC. Got a couple of wins. They were looking good and never really lived up to how talented we both wanted them to be. I don't know how to pick this one. You want to talk about a style contrast. This is as contrasting. You know what I mean? Krylov, I think, is just starting to put together his hands a little bit more in the last little while. But yeah, it's a fun one. Terrible, or a car crash. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's a fun one. What did we learn about Ozdamir's? What have we learned about Ozdamir since he fought Daniel Cormier back in what was that 2016 maybe? I don't feel that we've learned 2018. Sorry, what have we learned about him since then?
Has he grown as a fighter? No, maybe the opposite, if anything.
Nothing that we didn't already know. We knew that he's a phenomenal puncher, especially at short range. I don't think we'll have time, but Deontay Wilder this weekend knocked out Robert Helenius with, almost like a 1-inch punch. It was very Bruce Lee-like, but Ozdamir is very similar. He doesn't need to wind up a huge shot to knock his opponent out. But, like we said, lost to Prochazka, that brutal knockout, lost to Ankalaev, and then he beat Paul Craig by decision. That was a Paul Craig that was flopping to his back at every opportunity. No disrespect to Paul Craig, because that's kind of his style.
Yeah.
But, did we learn a lot about Volkan Oezdemir in that one? Well, yeah, he could defend takedowns very well, but that's about it. And then the same with Krylov, his last fight against Alex Gustafsson, like you say, in at UFC London, to finish in a little over a minute. What have we really learned about him? He obviously was cut from the UFC and then came back successfully. He made a successful comeback. Mm-hmm. But I don't think this is the right. It sounds like we're being a little bit down. This is the right fight to make.
It's actually a good. It's a good fight.
A great fight, and I am excited. I will, without a doubt, tune into. This isn't one that you skip to see the result for, but it's a difficult stylistic one to kind of analyze because you don't really know what.
This fight's very light heavyweight.
It's so light heavyweight. Both guys are coming off an unconvincing win after 2. Not even unconvincing, just a win that we didn't learn much about. Knocking out Alexander Gustafsson's good, but it's not Alexander Gustafsson a 3-time title challenger or 4-time, however many times he's faced it, he's competed for the belt. It's a fun fight. I think Ozdamir can knock Krylov out. Krylov can probably grind out a pretty boring decision on the ground. I think that's probably the way it's going to go. Is Krylov maybe takes Ozdamir down, but if Ozdamir catches him in that short range, like we say, it's going to be lights out for Krylov, because Ozdamir is such a heavy hitter, especially at that short range. But it's a very, like you say, it's a very light heavyweight. It is what it is. And am I going to tune in for it? Absolutely, because these are big guys, the heaviest guys I think on the card. Yeah, there's no heavyweight fights on this card, so yeah, it's almost you'd hope for a finish, but we'll have to wait and see.
All right, those are the real big name movers on this card. UFC 280. What else do you see on this card that you wanted to sound off on before we head out of here?
Just say to make sure you tune in for Muhammad Mokaev. Obviously, he quite literally burst onto the scene in the first round against Cody Durden in London earlier on in the year on the March card.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit lackluster in that second. Not a fan-friendly style in that second fight against Charles Johnson. He landed 12 takedowns.
Charles Johnson is good. He's better than people thought he was.
This is a guy who's on paper, everyone's saying, oh, what? He says you can't even finish a guy that's coming into the UFC. You don't know Charles Johnson's was it LFA?
He was an LFA champion. Yeah, he was the champion. Yeah.
So you don't know Charles Johnson's career if you're saying, oh, you can't be a guy that's coming in for his first year.
Malarkey.
Casuals. I don't want to say it, but casual. He landed 12 of 26 takedowns in that one. Don't get me wrong, he absolutely dominated the fight and he won the fight convincingly. It was never in doubt when the final bell rung. But on paper, when you land 12 of 26 takedowns, you should not be hearing the final bell. You should be able to get that one finished. It's a big step. We're saying Charles Johnson's a good fighter. I think Malcolm Gordon is a big step up in competition. He's coming off 2 straight wins, including a TKO finish last time out. I still think Muhammad Mokaev gets it done.
Definitely.
I can't imagine. This has got to be slightly wrong. Maybe it's not.
What's wrong, sir? What happened?
One second. Let me just. Okay, yeah, that's concerning. For fans of Malcolm Gordon, he's got a takedown defense of 0%. He has never been able to defend a takedown shot against him in the UFC. So I think that kind of tells you all that you need to know about Malcolm Gordon.
It's not a great sign. It's not great.
Betters, if you're betting and can bet on Malcolm Gordon being taken down within the first minute, put your house on it, because a takedown defense of 0% against a guy who across 2 UFC fights has landed. He lands an average of 11.27 takedowns per UFC fight. Yes, he's only had 2 fights, but landing an average of 11 takedowns per fight against a guy who has a takedown defense of 0% tells you everything you need to know about this fight and where it's going to play out. Mokaev, it's a coming out party on the pay-per-view for Mokaev, in my opinion, and it's a maybe UK bias, but the stats will also kind of back up the UK bias that I'm showing.
No, it's like the UK bias really does come up when we talk about things like Darren Till. But no, Muhammad Mokaev, come on, that is well earned. This is a good win for him here to move him up a little bit. Malcolm Gordon from London, Ontario. It's not going to be a great one for him. Speaking of UK bias, you want to talk about Savannah Marshall?
Clarissa Shields is so much better than I thought even she could be. I knew going into the fight, again, British bias, I was hoping that Savannah Marshall could catch her. And she caught her and she carried on walking through it and she didn't really care. And she showed I was watching it, obviously it's on Sky Sports. The viewers' scorecards had it close going into the last round. Why are we asking viewers? Because you're asking British viewers who... of course, going to say, Savannah Marshall edged that one. Every time Savannah Marshall had Clarissa Shields up against the ropes and kind of unloaded on her, the crowd were going wild. Well, yeah, she was unloading on her, but she was unloading. I could probably go in there and just unload on Clarissa Shields' elbows. It doesn't mean that I'm winning the fight. With the greatest respect to Savannah Marshall, and she said it herself, she was just beaten on the day by the better fighter. Will these two rematch?
Yeah,
potentially, but I don't think it was. I think out of the two sort of main fights on that card, the Michaela Mayer, Alicia Baumgardner fight, I actually scored that in favour of Mayer. She obviously didn't get a hand raised in that one. I want to see a rematch in that one because it was far, far closer than the Savannah Marshall Clarissa Shields fight.
Yeah.
I don't think Marshall has got anything. You know, she quite simply she was beaten by the better woman. Clarissa Shields was so quick in there, so accurate, and her shot choice, her shot placement was just better than Savannah Marshall's, who just looked to kind of walk her down and wear on her, which ultimately she wasn't able to do. It's a difficult one for me because I really wanted Savannah Marshall to win. No disrespect to Clarissa Shields, but it is just that British bias. But, you know, I think Clarissa Shields is now, you know, she's not only shown us that she can box with the best, she's shown us that she can box with the heaviest hitter in women's boxing today in Savannah Marshall. You know, she prior to this, she'd finished 10 of 12. She can hit. Finishing 10 of 12 in just 2-minute rounds. You know, we've been going for almost, you know, coming up to an hour and a half now. I can't talk about 2-minute rounds because we'll be going on for 5.5 hours. But you know, the 2-minute rounds I did think played a big factor in both of these fights. But you know, for Savannah Marshall to be such a heavy hitter in 2-minute rounds and finish so many girls in 2-minute rounds, it just showed you the class that Clarissa Shields sort of showed in this one.
Well, yeah, and Clarissa, like you said, she looked amazing in there. She is a tactical, such like a precise technical boxer, and the way that she celebrated, the way that she was treating this fight going in, she knew that this was the biggest fight of her life. Savannah Marshall was the biggest challenge of her career. This is Savannah Marshall's first loss, and Shields is now collected. She's all 4, correct? She's got the 4
undisputed now,
unreal
at middleweight, yeah.
Unreal, like an amazing job. And I think one thing with Clarissa Shields is that you and I really do work in the fight game a lot, so we see a lot of this, but just from the reactions on Twitter and Instagram, I think Clarissa's starting to come across a little bit more into the mainstream. I think that story that she has is finally coming across into the mainstream, and she deserves it. She is an outstanding boxer.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you know, we forget that she's gone to compete in the PFL. She's transitioning over into sports, and she's you know, like you say, I do think now, I think that she had to have the right dance partner. She told Savannah Marshall, look, that was the hardest fight of my career.
Yes.
You can look good dancing around someone that's 10-0 but never fought anyone.
Yeah.
Savannah Marshall going into the fight was a genuine live threat for Clarissa Shields, but that helped her transition over into the mainstream. You know, you don't headline this all-female, the first time in the UK that an all-female fight night has happened. You don't get to headline that if you're not a big draw.
Yep.
Savannah Marshall helped Clarissa Shields as Clarissa Shields helped Savannah Marshall. You can't tell me that Savannah Marshall won't have gained a hell of a load of fans. Likewise with Clarissa Shields, going to have gained a hell of a load of fans. So, but yeah, I completely agree with you. She's got the backstory. Whether we'll ever see her in MMA again, I don't know. But you know, even if we don't, so what? She tried it. She got paid by the PFL without a doubt. Yep. So you know, she's a boxer with barely any MMA training, and I think she's got in there twice now. So you know, why not? And she is transitioning, like you say, over into the mainstream. It's great to see.
Yeah, well deserved. UFC 280 coverage. I'm going to put our author links down below so you can find all the stuff that we have published going on this week. So all the social media, keep track of us on Instagram and Twitters and all that stuff. Links for these bad boys will be down below. My name is Tim Wheaton with MMA Sucka. Joined as always by Frazer Krohn. Frazer, last word. Anything else we need to cover?
I think we've covered it all. We'll be. I'm all right in saying that you're going out to 280.
No, I'll tell you about it after, but no.
Gutted.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, but that means that next Monday we will be here breaking down what is on paper the best fight night in UFC.
Yes.
In the UFC this year. Best pay-per-view, best fight, best card, best everything. There's gonna be talking points. Even if the first fight falls off, there's gonna be a talking point. Second fight falls off, there's gonna be a talking point. We will be breaking that fight card down next week, and I am hella excited for it.
Absolutely. Frazer, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, man.